That microwave you nuked your coffee in this morning, total accident. The potato chips you're mindlessly munching on right now, an act of revenge. Your life is filled with brilliant inventions that were never, ever supposed to exist. Today, we're uncovering the hilarious and shocking stories behind things you use every single day. Welcome to my channel. First, the microwave oven. You want to heat up last night's questionable casserole or defrost some mystery meat that's been lurking in the back of your freezer for months. Zap, zap. It's all thanks to a scientist looking for love. Okay, not exactly. But the story of how the microwave oven came to be is definitely a wild ride. In the early days of World War II, the military was pouring billions into developing radar systems that could detect incoming aircraft and missiles. After the war, the military lost interest in radar technology, which left Percy out of a job. So he started working for a company called Raytheon, where he continued his research on radar technology. But he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to life than defense. So he quit his job and joined the team at a struggling electronics company called Pemberton. And Percy Spencer was the man leading the charge. Now, Percy was a bit of a goofy guy, always eating candy bars while he worked. But what happened next was no laughing matter. One day, Percy felt something weird in his pocket, a chocolate bar that had completely melted. At first, he thought someone had pranked him. But then he realized that his equipment must have generated enough energy to do the trick. So he did what any sane person would do, grabbed some popcorn and pointed the machine at it. A few seconds later, the bag exploded, showering Percy and his lab mates with buttered popcorn. That's right, folks. Popcorn chicken and Hot Pockets wouldn't be possible without a happy accident involving a mischievous snack. There he developed the first microwave oven, which was massive, expensive, and only appealed to restaurants and large institutions. But the microwave oven almost didn't make it to your kitchen. But Percy wasn't giving up. He knew that the average consumer needed a cheaper, more convenient option. So he teamed up with a former colleague to develop a smaller, more affordable model. Their efforts paid off, and in 1955, the Radarange came onto the market. It cost a whopping $5,000, adjusted for inflation. But it was a fraction of what the commercial models cost. And eventually, the price came down, making the microwave oven a household staple. And now, you can buy one for under $100 at Walmart. You know those crispy, salty snacks that you can't seem to stop eating, even though they're probably bad for you? Speaking of snack time, let's talk about potato chips. Yeah, we all love M.T., but do you really know how they came to be? Well, the story goes that in the early 1900s, Theo was a chef in New York City who was fed up with a customer's constant complaints. See, the guy would go into the restaurant and order fried potatoes, but he always said they were too thick cut, and the chef was tired of it. So one day, he decided to take matters into his own hands. In a fit of rage, he took a mandolin and sliced the potatoes as thin as he possibly could, fried them up, sprinkled them with salt, and sent them out to the guy. To his surprise, the customer raved about the new, crispy, thin fries. He had no idea that they were actually revenge chips. The chef had finally had enough of his picky customer, and he was determined to get back at him. But little did he know that this act of petty revenge would change the course of culinary history forever. Soon, customers started ordering these crispy, thinly sliced potatoes by the bagful. And before long, the chef's restaurant was shipping hundreds of bags of chips all over the country. Who would have thought that a chef's act of revenge would turn into a multi-billion-dollar industry? And one of its greatest gifts to humanity is the humble Post-it note. But did you know that this office staple was also the result of a scientific mishap? It all started when a scientist at 3 meters was trying to create a super strong glue that could hold up in high-stress situations. But after years of research, he had nothing to show for it. Discouraged and ready to give up, he decided to take a break and go on vacation. Before leaving, he placed his latest batch of samples on a shelf and went on his merry way. But when he returned from vacation, he found that the samples had all fallen off the shelf and landed on a sticky note. Puzzled, He picked up the note and realized that the glue, which was supposed to be super strong, was actually super weak. But in that moment, he had an epiphany. Instead of creating the strongest glue ever, he had actually created the weakest glue ever. A glue that was so weak it could stick, but still be easily removed. And that's when he had the idea to use it as a bookmark. After some tinkering, he perfected the formula, and in 1974, the Post-it note was born. At first, the Post-it notes were a slow seller, but slowly but surely, they started gaining popularity. People loved the idea of being able to move their bookmarks around and not have to worry about damaging their books. And before long, the Post-its became a household name. Who knows what other inventions might have been born out of scientific mistakes? Speaking of popular products, let's take a sip of Coca-Cola. Ah, the sweet brown nectar of happiness. The drink that makes polar bears dance. The beverage that's synonymous with refreshment. But did you know that Coca-Cola was also the result of a pharmacist's slip-up? It all started when a pharmacist named John Pemberton was trying to find a cure for headaches. He experimented with various concoctions, mixing and matching different ingredients to try and come up with the perfect formula. But it seemed like no matter what he tried, he just couldn't get it right. Frustrated and ready to throw in the towel, he decided to take a break and go on a vacation. Before leaving, he left his latest batch of experiments on his workbench and went on his merry way. When he returned from vacation, he found that his experiments had somehow morphed into a sweet, caramel-like syrup. Intrigued, he decided to give it a try and mixed a glass of the syrup with some carbonated water. And that's when it hit him. He had just created a delicious, refreshing beverage that was perfect for quenching your thirst. Excited to share his discovery with the world, he took his formula to a local pharmacy and sold the rights to the drink for $2,300. Do you think the world would have been as enthusiastic about the drink? Who knows? And the rest, as they say, is history. But what if that fateful day Pemberton's assistant had added plain water instead of carbonated water? Maybe we'd all be sipping on flat Coke today. Who knows what other inventions we'll stumble upon next? Richard James was a naval engineer who was working on a top-secret project. During World War II, his job was to design springs that could keep sensitive equipment steady and balanced, even on rough seas. Day in and day out, he would work in his lab, testing and refining his designs, hoping to create the perfect spring. But the pressure was intense and the stakes were high. If his springs failed, the equipment they were attached to could be damaged or even destroyed. And if that happened, who knows what disastrous consequences would follow? The weight of the world, quite literally, seemed to be on his shoulders. But amidst the stress and tension, something unexpected happened. One day, James accidentally knocked one of his springs off a shelf and watched in amazement as it hit the floor and then started to walk towards him. As he reached out to grab the spring, he noticed that it seemed to move down the stairs on its own. Intrigued and confused, he stepped aside and watched as the spring continued its mysterious journey. At first, he thought it was a fluke, but then he tried it again and again, and each time, the spring walked down the stairs in a mesmerizing fashion. Realizing that he had stumbled upon something extraordinary, James decided to investigate further. He experimented with different shapes and sizes of springs and discovered that the ones with a tighter coil were more likely to walk. But why did they walk? How could a simple spring move on its own? Puzzled and intrigued, James continued his experiments. And it was during one of these experiments that he had a sudden realization. He understood the science behind the walking spring and saw the potential it had as a toy. With a sense of excitement and wonder, he decided to pursue the idea further. Well, it turns out that this beloved toy was the result of an engineer's slip of the finger. The colorful spiral that you could stretch out and watch it magically walk down a set of stairs. And finally, let's play with the Slinky. You remember that classic toy, right? Who knows what other inventions might have originated from a simple case of mistaken identity. So there you have it, folks. 5 everyday items that were never meant to be, but somehow ended up changing the world. You know, the internet has changed the way we do everything from shopping to socializing to watching videos. But one thing's for sure, life would be pretty boring without them. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more fun and engaging content.